Back to SoFi. So we went really heavy in SoFi back in April during post Liberation Day, and we went really hard into it when it was about 8 something. And you got to remember something. SoFi ran 277% in 8.5 months. Prior to Liberation Day, or whatever you want to call it, SoFi topped out at $18. So these are cycles, right? People buy the dip, it runs. There's fear in the market, fear on terminal rate cut, terminal rate being longer, higher for longer, more debt coming down. There's a flush out from software and from spec and growth stocks and everything like that. Everybody's profit taking. It's going to happen. Then it's going to bottom out and it's going to go back up. Where the bottom is, we don't know, but this is a cycle. SoFi's been doing this for years. I'm looking at SoFi as a hold for 10, 20, 30 years kind of thing. I'm not looking at it what it's going to be this week or next month or whatever. Give me SoFi under 18, I'm buying more. And then every $2 down, I'm going to buy more shares until I see something that's different than their earnings. Because I've gone through their earnings. Let me show you something right here. Okay, everybody looks at things differently. So remember, somebody's going to look at these numbers and they're going to think it's bearish. Some are going to think it's the best thing in the world. Some are going to look at it. No one knows what the future is going to hold. No one does. So if you see anybody say, well, this is going to happen, nobody knows. They're full of shit. I'm full of shit if I say I know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can take the catalyst, I can take the numbers and say, based on this and based on everything that's going around, I feel like we're still here. Let me show you what I'm talking about. 30 years hold, won't you be like 90? No wonder you are like red even in a bull market. You ain't so good with them numbers, son. Let me give you what I'm talking about here so you can see. This is just their numbers, right? And I look at it from more so like, obviously they spend a lot of money for customer acquisition, growth at all costs, or profit at all costs. But when you're looking at, the lending revenue, right? Lending revenue from 2021 is up from 166 million to 500 million, right? But not a big jump from Q3 to Q4. Not a big jump. So people are looking at that and saying there's a slowdown. But we've seen these ebbs and flows before, right? We're still increasing. Still a 20% year-over-year change. Okay, still an increase, a little bit of a slowdown. But lending changes. There's ebbs and flows to lending, right? Consumer spending tightened up a little bit, right? We didn't see as many admissions for college because of a lot of the new shakeups with H-1Bs and with student visas and with immigration and stuff like that. So we saw a slowdown, right? And so, you're not seeing that as much demand from colleges. Colleges are giving out more scholarships to fill up their role, meaning less people are having to lend and borrow. Plus, you got, a consumer spending from individual loans or homes or large purchases, whatever like that. So you saw a little bit of slowdown. So I can look at the macroeconomics and say, okay, well, I can understand why there was a slowdown that quarter. But you can see that they're obviously not seeing the exponential growth that they saw, quarter over quarter from Q2 2024 to Q3, right? Okay, makes sense. But look at the tech platform, right? Look at revenue. 45 million to 122 million. This is some pretty decent growth. We're talking about 6% quarter over quarter, 4.5%, 6.8%, right? 19% year over year. Financial services. This is the thing that's going to be one of their growth stories, okay? You're seeing exponential growth. You're seeing exponential growth, okay? We had a negative 25% right here on Q3 of 2021, obviously coming out of COVID right here. But going over, it's just massive increase. But I don't care about that, right? Like these are just, you're looking at quarter over quarter. That's cool. Quarter changes, right? Looking at their revenue for lending, as we just saw, still seeing that increase. It's a slight increase here in the quarter over quarter, but SoFi is obviously still in that customer acquisition. They're obviously the high yield, the savings isn't paying as much as it was because, the Fed lowered rate. Now, bear case thing, I have to give myself bear case. One of the big reasons that SoFi acquired a lot of customers is because they were outpacing all the other legacy banks by wide margins on high yield savings accounts. But as the Fed lowers rates, they're going to have to lower their high yield savings accounts as well, which is going to slow down customer acquisition, right? Always give yourself a negative and not just a positive. Revenue segments. Look at this. Financial services is exploding. Okay, now you might say to yourself, but Stocky, how does this company have a market cap of 25 billion when they only have, what is their yearly right here? What is their yearly right here? Even quarterly right here. It's only 600 million, right? So let's just say, let's go with 2 billion, right? Yeah, it's like 10 to 1. It's a lot. But you're looking at current value. If this trajectory continues, you're looking at that valuation increasing. Okay, this is what I care about, though. I care about member increases, okay? Look at these numbers. When you are a financial services, a bank, and you are growing and you're a fintech platform and you are seeing at minimum 7.6% as the lowest quarter over quarter membership growth for 5 straight years. You've gone from 2.5 million members to 14 million members. Now, it sounds 14 million isn't a lot, right? Because obviously you're talking about JP Morgan, they've got 100 million or something like that. But we're talking about the growth isn't slowing down. Why this is important is because these members are going to be lifelong members because they're younger, and people, when they get locked into financial things, they tend to stay with them forever. That's why they pay so much money to finance influencers or content creators, because they know that if they get the value per user sign up for anything is exponentially higher than a fucking video game or a fucking service, right? So this is why it's so important. But year over year, we're talking 30%, 68%, 50%. Now, obviously, bear case, right? Look at the slowdown, right? But obviously, as you get more numbers, the higher your number goes, the bigger the decrease in the overall growth is, just because you have something you're a higher number that you're multiplying against. But so you go, still solid 34%, right? Not as high as 68, but kind of hard to go from 4 million and see a 68% increase. But 12.5, another million members in a quarter, right? That's pretty big change. On their product side, still seeing that exponential growth. All right, here's your membership. Look at this. No slowdown. This is beautiful. This is the kind of chart that if I was sitting in a board meeting and somebody said, this is the growth. Do you want, fuck it, I don't care what it is. Sir, this is demand for double-edged butt plugs. I don't give a shit. Just fucking, here's my money. All right? Invest in it. So, sure, the current valuation of the stock based on its current numbers is a bit inflated, or it was when it was sitting at $28. Very fair. That's why I'm not even like, oh my God, I can't believe SoFi's selling off. This is insane. Look at the growth. No, it was growing in future P&E, future P&S, right? Price to earnings, price to sales, vastly early. But it's not wrong. It's just early. Now, this could change. We might see a plateau. We might see a decrease. Then I'll have to reassess my position. But until I see that, just because it got to a high valuation early does not mean I think that that's not going to be back to that valuation. I get a chance to buy it cheaper again before the next run. I'm not sitting here saying that I know the future and that this is going to be the best pick of your lifetime. But based on what I'm seeing, based on it, because I watch it closely, yeah, it got a very high valuation in a short period of time. It's a bit early. Doesn't mean it's wrong. So I continue to watch these things so you don't have to. You can look at these numbers and come to a completely different conclusion as to what this means. But when I look at this and I look at their fucking balance sheet, okay, and I'm talking about based on, because remember, you're trying to focus on, if you're basing on how things were valued and you know, assessed 10 years ago, it's different, okay? But when I look at them and I say, okay, this is something that I see is a, you know, a potential, a really good potential here. Okay, look at this EPS growth. I mean, Charlie Munger is dead, but he would still get a boner seeing this. If I were able to fucking slide this fucking EPS growth into his fucking casket, he would, you know, because this is what he was looking for. Now they're expecting a little slowdown here for you know, Q1 2026 earnings, but yeah, I mean, look at this right here. Assets have grown to 50 billion, liabilities have grown to 40 billion, but still assets are outpacing right now. Total equities at 10.5 billion, net debt negative 3.5 billion. They're doing pretty goddamn good, at least from that aspect. Now, if I want to look at their ROIC, which they're in the growth phase, so they're probably not going to have a lot of ROIC, right? But look at this right here. Look at this growth. I'm not going to let this go, man. There's no way I'm going to let this go. There's no way I'm not going to fucking do it, especially in the financial service where they're fucking picking up all these younger people. And now with Mr. Beast out here fucking getting all these younger people to be like, oh, I want to learn about this stuff because Mr. Beast is involved. We'll see how that plays out. I hope it doesn't blow up in their face. I already told the guy, he didn't see it, but like if he wants to like be legit, like go through, I'd be happy to like work with them behind the scenes or like that, because like I want to see what's really going on here. But yeah, who am I? I'm a fucking nobody. But still, like I'm hoping that this works out, not because I want him and all of his venture capitalists and fucking celebrity investors to make a bunch of money off these kids. I just don't want to see people get hurt. I don't want to see people get blown up. I really don't, especially younger people, because if they are young, they feel like they're trusting somebody to go in, and they find that they didn't read the 6,000 different things of fine print, and they lose money, or they feel like they were jaded. It will stop them from investing the rest of their life. There are people that found this channel who saw us trading, didn't realize we were trading with small amounts of money or whatever, decided, oh, I'm going to do what they're doing without any experience, lost some money, left, and never ever opened a Roth IRA, a 401k, just automatically assumed that this is the market. They didn't understand what they were doing. They lost some money, and they stayed away from it. Or there's content creators out there who tell people that the stock market is evil and don't invest and don't do these things and stuff like that. And those people's lives are ruined. Those young people will literally, because they listened to somebody they trusted, will have their lives ruined or wrecked or struggle the rest of their lives because of that. And like, I'm always so like big on like, you know, doing just the bare minimum, just doing stay away from trading, stay away from fucking derivatives, do dollar cost averaging, do reoccurring buys, total market SPETFs, get rid of your fucking high management fees, pay down your credit cards, like do all that stuff. I want people to be financially secure. I don't want everybody to be, because if everybody was financially literate, then we couldn't make money off of them. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of stupid fucking people out there, at least when it comes to spending. I mean, half the people in America that are paycheck to paycheck make more than enough money. Americans aren't broke. They just have a spending problem. Now, there are broke Americans. There are a lot of Americans struggling, but there's a lot of Americans that are struggling because they don't know how to budget. They don't know how to keep up with their money. They have a spending problem. It's insane.